Both the ATC and the 777 flight crew were unaware of the bird strike, which had just caused the Embraer 190 to begin slowing down, and the 777 was now making its way down the same runway. The traffic controller, thinking he had sorted the movement on runway 06L, turned his attention to runway 05 at the north end of the airport, where two other aircrafts were set for approach. In his mind, the distance between the Embraer 190 and the 777 seemed okay before he looked away. This meant, unfortunately, that he wasn't paying attention to the deceleration of the Embraer 190. Moments later, with all the warnings still going unnoticed, the controller cleared yet another aircraft, a de Havilland Dash 8, to make its way to the same runway, 06L, and prepare for takeoff. This meant that there were now 3 aircraft on the same runway, yet somehow the guidance systems failed to send out any warnings. Usually, the RIMCAS system would signify to the controllers when 2 mobile planes on the ground are within a dangerous distance of each other. But the Embraer 190's transponder had somehow denoted that the aircraft was airborne after it accelerated past 50 knots, despite the aircraft being parked on the ground. This meant that the RIMCAS couldn't send out any warning, as it thought the aircraft was no longer on the ground, despite indicating its deceleration. Behind the Embraer 190, the flight crew of the 777 began to notice that the Embraer 190 was getting closer rather than farther away from them, and they knew something had gone wrong. The problem, however, was that the aircraft was barreling down the runway at over 230 kilometers per hour, and the Embraer 190 was just less than 3 kilometers away. At that rate, it would take less than a minute for the 777 to collide with the Embraer 190. Presumably, no one on the 190 would survive such a collision. The flight crew of the 777 were faced with 2 options: to continue accelerating and somehow take off just above the Embraer 190, or to reject takeoff entirely. Since the plane had not reached rotational speed, the captain decided it was best to reject takeoff and reached out to air traffic control to inform them of the new plans. Unlike the Embraer 190, the radio call from the 777 to signify a rejected takeoff was received by the controller. However, it was only then that the controller checked for the Embraer 190 and found that it hadn't been in its expected position, but was rather airborne and at the end of the runway. But it was now too late, and all the controller could do was wait and watch to see if the flight crew of the 777 could stop the plane before it collided with the Embraer 190.